Up next in the broadcast, authorities arrest 2 employees from the shipping company of the tragic Sewol-ho ferry under accusations that they knowingly made dangerous renovations to the 20-year-old boat and even embezzled funds while doing it. Is there a new number 2 in North Korea? After a promotion just 2 weeks ago, Kim Jong-un's confidant gets another high-ranking title that may put him at odds with the current second-in-command. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says the German model is not for Japan when it comes to apologizing for wartime atrocities and educating future generations. Primetime News begins now. Hello, welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sean Lim, and I have a new partner. Chetty, welcome back to Arirang.
Thank you very much, and great to be here. Very excited myself, and of course at your service. Let's get the newscast started. Now, it's been 16 days since the ferry disaster, and the confirmed death toll stands at 221 at this point, with 81 people, mostly teenagers, still missing.
Kim Ji-yeon, who's been following the latest developments today, joins us now. So, Ji-yeon, there's another surprising connection to this case, this time between the de facto owner of the Sewol-ho ferry and also an investigator.
Right. The National Maritime Police Agency says it has replaced Lee Yong-wook as the director of the Korea Coast Guard's Police Investigation Unit for an apparent conflict of interest after they discovered that Lee was employed at one of Yoo Byung-eun's companies, the Semo Marine Shipbuilding Company, for 6 years in the 1990s. Lee did say, however, that he had broken off all contact with Semo Marine when he joined the Coast Guard.
Now, tell us about how the rescue operators are under heat as well.
Well, the rescue operation team that first arrived at the ferry site on April 16th is under fire again. It took the Mokpo Coast Guard more than 20 minutes to prepare and depart for the ferry site. The Korea Coast Guard downplayed the delay and said it was within their standards. Normally, it takes rescue teams a few minutes to depart from their stations to an accident site. Critics also say they should have been better prepared and more adequately trained to handle such emergencies like the Sewol-ho ferry.
And update us on the investigation, the ongoing investigation. There were more arrests that were made today, apparently.
Authorities arrested 2 senior employees of Cheonghaejin Marine Company on Thursday for negligence. They stand accused of allowing the ferry to be renovated so it could hold more cargo, knowing very well of the dangers. The excess cargo and weight on the ferry is seen as one of the main reasons for the sinking. And also the joint investigative team says that it detected a problem in the ferry's cargo fastening system. The turnbuckle device, which fastens the cargo into place, was not being used, and instead only insufficient ropes and a device called a cone were holding down the cargo. And some do believe this allowed the cargo to slide to one side and destabilize the ship's balance.
And also the probe on the owners of the ferry company is deepening as well, right?
Right, you're right. A search and seizure was conducted at 10 company affiliates and private houses in connection with Yoo Byung-eun, the de facto owner of the ferry company. And Yoo's family members, including his brother-in-law, have been notified to appear before prosecutors by Friday, which is tomorrow. And also an arrest warrant was requested for a key figure linked to Yoo, Song Guk-bin, the CEO of a cosmetics company called the Panda, for reportedly embezzling funds worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And we made some progress today on the search operations, but how are they proceeding?
Well, the rescue operation team has found several bodies inside the vessel Thursday, and authorities said that they expect to make more progress in their search starting Friday, as they believe they'll finally be able to get inside the cabins that have been currently blocked by debris. The rescue team is planning to use specially designed crowbars made by the Korean Navy and firefighters.
Thank you very much, Jian. Thank you very much for being up on the top of the story, actually.
You're welcome.
Now, staying with this story, of course, in the wake of the disaster, the Korean government says it's investing more money on establishing a more centralized disaster response system and boosting emergency training.
President Park Geun-hye asked all ministries to make sure manuals that contain emergency response procedures are in place and those in charge are well informed and properly trained. She also talked about maintaining the country's financial soundness through a so-called pay-go policy so that expenditures are paid for with funds that are already available.
Your gateway to the day's biggest stories in Korea and around the world. Breaking news, the hottest interviews, and a whole lot more. Join Arirang Sean Lim and Kang Chae-ri from the heart of Seoul.
News begins now.
Primetime News, weeknights, live at 10 on Arirang TV.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is in the early stage of his European tour, but has already managed to upset a sentiment in Northeast Asia. He said Japan is not following Germany's track in dealing with its wartime wrongdoings. Connie Kim with this report.
Speaking to a German daily Wednesday before his trip to Frankfurt, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said his country would not follow Germany's post-war track. Answering a question posed by Frankfurter Allgemeiner Zeitung about whether Tokyo should benchmark Germany when dealing with its historical wrongs, Abe said the two situations are completely different. Since World War II, Germany has provided full compensation to neighboring countries and published textbooks that reveal the horrors that German leaders perpetrated. It's also apologized for its past wrongdoings. But Prime Minister Abe said that neighboring European unions had one common goal in mind, that being an integrated Europe. He said that is not the case for Asia. Abe added that Japan and its neighbors had already come to an agreement on compensation measures. The Prime Minister then turned his attention to the current tensions in Northeast Asia, blaming them on Japan's neighbors. He said the door to talks remains open, but that they should begin without preconditions. Abe's comments are once again raising eyebrows about Japan's sincerity to improve relations in the region. The Japanese leader criticized China for beefing up its military might, saying it would not serve to help Asia's economic development. He was responding to Chinese President Xi Jinping's remarks that criticized Abe's recent moves to the right. Prime Minister Abe left for a six-nation trip through Europe on Tuesday, where trade and security issues will dominate discussions. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
And here is an economic data point to get out to you, this time potentially easing concerns about deflation in the country. Korea's April Consumer Price Index rose 1.5% from a year earlier, the fastest on-year rise since August last year. Rising utility costs as well as home rental prices helped the gain. April was another solid month for Korean exporters. The trade balance has now been in the black for 27 straight months, with sectors that did not fare so well last year showing a rebound. Song Ji-sun has the breakdown.
Korea posted a 27th consecutive monthly trade surplus in April, and more importantly, it resulted from improvement in most export industries. With the exception of LCD panels, key export items demonstrated strong growth, even steel and petroleum products, which suffered from a slump last year. Deliveries of high value-added vessels, like drill ships, helped place the shipping industry at the top in terms of export growth. Traditional export engines like semiconductors and handsets also saw an expansion thanks in part to the launch of Samsung's new Galaxy S5 model. The nation's trade surplus stood at $4.5 billion in April, with outbound shipments surpassing the $50 billion mark for the second time in history. Last month's export figure of $50.3 billion is up 9% from the same month last year, while imports rose 5% to $45.9 billion. By region, exports to U.S. rose 19% in April, another sign that the U.S. economy is recovering at a robust pace. Outbound shipments to ASEAN countries and Japan also gained ground, but slowed to European nations and China. Trade officials said, however, the large surplus in April was partly because exporters expedited shipping and customs clearances in April before the holidays in the first week of May. Looking to the month ahead, slower growth is possible due to a fewer number of working days. 송지선, Arirang News.
Turning now to questions over North Korea's nuclear program, U.S. researchers say North Korea's nuclear test doesn't seem imminent at this point. That is, if the regime is sticking to its previous test practices. Satellite imagery posted on 38 North, a website run by the U.S. Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University, shows vehicles and equipment are still outside a tunnel entrance at the Punggye-ri site. In the past, all equipment, vehicles, and personnel were withdrawn in the days before a test. However, the website added there is no knowing whether North Korea is changing its procedures. Now let's talk about what else is going on in North Korea. This time in the power circle, there's a new player and he's moving up the ranks fast. It looks like Hwang Byung-seo, who made vice marshal just 2 weeks ago, has replaced another top-ranking official to become number 2 in the regime. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
When North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a newly built textile mill in Pyongyang on Wednesday, he was accompanied by Hwang Byung-seo. Here, Kim ordered the military Politburo chief to congratulate the workers in celebration of May Day.
Leader Kim called for May Day to be celebrated on a grand scale and ordered the military Politburo chief to attend the event to congratulate the workers.
But Choi Ryong-hae, a long-serving hardliner in the North Korea military brass, is not seen in the photos from that day. He's also absent from the list of officials who accompanied the young leader.
The leader was accompanied by comrades Hwang Byung-seo, Park Yong-sik, and Ma Won-chun.
This has fueled speculation that Hwang may have replaced Choi as the military Politburo chief. North Korea watchers are keeping a close eye on the rapid rise of Hwang, who was promoted to the position of vice marshal less than 2 weeks after being put in the ranks of a 4-star general. Hwang reportedly led last year's purge of Chang Sung-taek, who was once the second most powerful man in North Korea. Experts say Hwang's speedy promotion may be intended to cap the power of Choi, the regime's current number 2. As for Choi, who has vanished from public sight in recent weeks, the rumors are that he has been hospitalized due to complications from diabetes and fatigue. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And Professor Park Hee-rak is here to help us make a little more sense of these threats or activities at North Korea's nuclear test site. Professor, welcome. Will it or will it not is the first question, of course. And do you think that we need to read into these kind of pre-warnings coming from North Korea?
It's because we have many things to lose, and we always try to be prepared for the worst-case scenario. So we cannot ignore any warnings by North Korea. However, I think North Korea may use this word as not a real meaning or as a bluffing. So sometimes I think we should try to intentionally disregard this kind of threats.
So North Korea said that it was going to conduct a test unlike any other. Is it trying to change the game that it's playing, and what does it have to gain from another nuclear test?
North Korea, as you know, is very irrational, not rational country. So we do not predict their next move by our rational calculation. But if they conduct a nuclear test, I think they try to demonstrate their nuclear power to the world, and they want to be recognized as a nuclear power state by the international society. And also, I think they want to consolidate the people's support to the North Korean Kim Jong-un leader, yes.
And this is where China is supposed to come in, or expected to come in by the international community. How much or little do you think China's influence over North Korea is working at this point?
If China uses the strategy or the means they used in the past, I don't think they they change the North Koreans' behavior or thinking. If somebody tried to change the other's attitude or thinking, somebody should use sticks and carrots together. I think China should set the red line to the North Korea, and if North Korea do not cooperate with Chinese advice, they should impose economic or other even military sanctions to North Korea.
Staying with China a little bit, though, do you think the Xi Jinping administration is willing to set that red line for North Korea?
That's the problem. But if we persuade Xi Jinping and Chinese leaders, and that if North Korea have the nuclear weapons, for example, 10 or 20 or 50 nuclear weapons, it could be a big threat to not even to Korean Peninsula, to the Northeast Asia. So if we persuade China to do the practical things to stop the North Koreans' aggressive actions, I think they could agree us and they could do more, yes.
Well, let's talk about Seoul's potential response to a fourth nuclear test. Is there any more room for us to impose sanctions?
Yeah, that's the problem. I think economic sanctions, we imposed lots of economic sanctions, but I don't think that worked. So I think that we need to consider the military sanctions. For example, we need to contain the North Korean ships, some type of ships to the outside. So without being prepared for difficulties, we cannot make North Korea to follow our advice.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insight and comments tonight.
Yes.
It's time now for our Around the World segment, and let's go to Paul at Arirang News Center for the latest international updates.
And let's start with Ukraine, Paul. The International Monetary Fund has approved a major bailout for the country, but with strings attached. What are some of the conditions?
Well, the IMF deal calls for the interim government in Kiev to enact major reforms to its energy and financial sectors, which includes raising taxes and increasing the price of gas by more than 50%. In exchange, the IMF will provide $17 billion in aid for Ukraine over a period of 2 years. The decision also clears the way for an immediate injection of $3.2 billion as part of efforts to stabilize the Ukrainian economy amid the worst civil unrest in over 2 decades. Christine Lagarde, the IMF's managing director, said Ukraine needed to seize the moment.
Urgent action was necessary. Decisive measures were taken by Ukraine, and decisive measures have just been taken by the IMF. So there has been a very strong endorsement for the program, which will release over the course of the next 2 years $17.1 billion.
Meanwhile, pro-Russian separatists remain in control of several government buildings in dozens of cities and towns in eastern Ukraine. Mediators are also holding negotiations with militants who have taken 7 military observers hostage in the pro-Russia stronghold of Slavyansk. And turning now to the United States, a botched execution in the state of Oklahoma has reignited the debate over the death penalty. 38-year-old Clayton Lockett was scheduled to be put to death by lethal injection on Tuesday, but doctors stopped the execution when he began convulsing and writhing in pain. He then died of a massive heart attack about 40 minutes after the procedure. State officials had been testing a new cocktail of chemicals in its lethal injections. Human rights groups have condemned the incident as torture and called for a nationwide ban on capital punishment. The governor of Oklahoma, Mary Fallin, has ordered an independent review into the state's execution protocols. She also said that executions for other death row inmates have been delayed pending the results of the investigation. And finally, unions across Korea held rallies today in light of International Labor Day. But Indonesia has also showed its united support for workers' rights. More than 100,000 took to the streets in the capital city of Jakarta on Thursday, calling on the government to raise its minimum wage and do more to protect workers. The current minimum salary varies across the country, but in larger cities it stands at about $189 per month. Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono has pledged to increase wages by 2019, but protesters say it's too little, too late. The massive rally comes as Indonesia's main opposition named Jakarta Governor Joko Widodo as its presidential candidate. He is widely expected to become the next leader of the world's third largest democracy. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. The International Olympic Committee wrapped up its three-day visit to Pyeongchang, Gangwon-do Province, and gave an improving thumbs up to the preparations for the 2018 Winter Games. The head of the IOC Coordination Commission, Gunilla Lindberg, praised the Pyeongchang 2018 Organizing Committee and the progress of their efforts, but pointed out that much was still left to be done. And to that, Pyeongchang Organizing Committee head Kim Jin-sun promised to complete the task smoothly and efficiently. The IOC will return for their fourth meeting in November this year. And leaving that there, both the PGA and LPGA tee off stateside on Thursday with their respective tournaments. First, it's the Wells Fargo Championship in the PGA. Top stars will be there: Rory McIlroy, Phil Mickelson, as well as last week's Zurich Classic winner, No Sung-yeol. Meanwhile, in the LPGA, world number one Park In-bi attempts to defend her title at the North Texas Shootout. Now both run through Sunday. And heading to the Champions League semi-final action, Atletico Madrid took down Chelsea 3-1 in their second leg to advance to the finals. Fernando Torres' first half strike for Chelsea was offset by goals by Atletico's Arirang, Diego Costa, and Turan in the win. Now this sets up an all-Spanish championship between Atletico and Real Madrid, taking place in Lisbon, Portugal on May 24th, local time. And moving on to baseball, we fly over to the MLB, where the Los Angeles Dodgers reached the historic franchise milestone of 10,000 wins. Former Cy Young winner Zach Greinke threw 6 solid innings without giving up an earned run, with Juan Uribe leading the offense to a 6-4 victory over the Minnesota Twins. The Dodgers have now become the 4th team to reach the 10,000 win milestone after the Giants, Cubs, and the Braves. And switching to the KBO, an umpire was assaulted and put in a headlock by a drunk fan during the SK Kia game on Wednesday, and it raised concerns about security as well as the officiating. It's presumed that the fan was lashing out against some questionable calls, which, along with video replays, were a hot issue this week. And that, speaking of SK and Kia, it's Thursday's top KBO matchup between the Wyverns and the Tigers. Now, SK is coming off a loss yesterday, and they score in the first inning, but Kia's Najiwan, he bats in 2 and comes home himself. It's 4-1. Now Kia tacks on 3 more in the third, started by Kim Minu's 2-run jack, and more in the 5th as Na brings 2 more home, making it 9-1 Kia. Now more Kia, it's a rampage as they tack on 11 in the 6th and 7th. They go on to win this one with a final score of 20-2. And looking at the other games, we have NC taking care of LG 10-5, Hanwha beating Lotte 3-0, and Nexen edging out Tusan 2-1. And now that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Chen. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
It was another clear, sunny day here in Seoul, but unfortunately that wasn't the case down in Chindo.
For details, we go over to our Kim Bo-kyung, who is standing by for us at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung.
Guys, it was a misty day on Chindo with poor visibility. Spring tides will continue through Friday, but search efforts should get some relief now as tidal currents have slowed down for the last time on this Thursday. Shifting our gears for a bit, we have a 4-day weekend coming up as this coming Monday and Tuesday are national holidays. Those of you that are making plans to head out, keep in mind that light-passing sporadic showers are forecast for the central regions on Friday and nationwide rain awaits us on Sunday. While taking a look at the current conditions, due to a high-pressure system from the water south of Jeju, we're seeing clear skies across the country. Well, Friday is shaping up to be a warm spring day despite light-passing showers for the central regions. Moving on to Friday's readings, Seoul and Busan reach 23 degrees while Gwangju tops out at 25. Taking a look at other places, Daejeon and Jeju peak at 25 degrees while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang make it to 18 and 21. Well, that's all the updates I have for you at this hour, but I'll be back with the latest after midnight.
Thanks very much, Bo-kyung, for that. And that's our broadcast on this Thursday night. I am Kang Chae-ri.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.